Hello everybody, welcome back. It's week 4. We are past the halfway point of this sew along. I can't believe how quickly it's coming together. I hope you made it through all those pumpkins okay. And this week we will be making our cute haunted houses. We're back to a more reasonable number of blocks, just 3 this week, and it comes together really quick. So let's dive right into it. So remember, we sorted them out. We already have most of our pieces separated into our little bag here, and it's all labeled so we remember what it's for. So I'm just going to open this up just like so. And we are going to sort this even further so that we can begin making our houses. So now I'm going to open up my stack of 5-inch squares. And remember, you can reference your fabric key that's included with your kit. But we'll turn to page 24 of the pattern, which is where week 4 begins. And we're going to begin, just as it says, by sorting our 10-inch squares into 3 stacks for our houses. So to start, we need, it says, 2 10-inch squares each of fabrics B, K, and M. So fabric B, I know, are these really cute little skulls. So I'm going to set those aside in one pile. Fabric K are our gray spider webs right here. So that comes next. And then fabric M is our dark background with the bats right here. So this is my 3rd pile. And you know, each of these that you have 2 10-inch squares is going to make the structure of the house. And so each one of these will be the background of our house itself. And then we're going to move on to the doors and windows, in which case we need 1 10-inch square for each of those. So we're going to start with fabric C, which is our black background with pumpkins. That's going to go with our spiderweb fabric. Next up, we need fabric L, which I'm going to look at my guide here, and that is my white spider webs. And I'm going to skip ahead and see which one it goes with. It looks like it goes with the skulls. So we'll put that there. And fabric O are these cute little ghosts, which I know have to go with my bat fabric. So now we'll move on to our roofs. We need fabric E. So fabric E is this cute little kitty print. And it looks like that goes with my spider webs here. Then fabric K is these spider webs. And that goes with the bats. And that just leaves me with these dots that is going to go with the skulls. And so now I have each of my fabrics set aside for the individual houses. I am just going to make one of these for you because they're all made the exact same way. So I'm just going to slide these 2 aside for now. And we're going to begin by cutting our 2 10-inch squares that make the bulk of our house. So just like every other step that we've done on the pattern, when you open this up, it has great diagrams for you that show you how each square is going to be cut. Be sure to follow along with that. It's going to make it super simple for you and more straightforward. So we have our fabric for our houses. Let's go ahead and get them cut. So I can look here, and the first strip I want to cut off of here is 3.5 inches. So I am just going to take my ruler and line this up on my mat so it's nice and straight. I'm going to measure over 3.5 inches. Oh, that's a little crooked. Let me just straighten that up. There we go. There's our first cut, and then we want to subcut that so it's only 3.5 by 9. So we'll just trim off this last inch. There we go. And then we are going to turn this, because this leaves this piece at 6.5 inches. And we're going to cut 2 pieces at 6 by 3.5. Ooh, I slipped. Easy, easy. Learn from my mistakes. The good news is I have plenty. Even though I cut a little bit off, I can catch that in my 1/4 inch seam. So I'm just going to leave that, and it's going to be just fine. So this is my second 6.5 by 3.5 inch strip, just like so. And then we're going to turn this. This piece should be 3 inches tall that's left, and we need to cut a 2.5 by 3 inch piece. So there's that piece, and then we need to cut 2 1.5 by 2 inch pieces. So since this is 3 inches tall, I'm going to measure over 2 inches, and then I can just turn this and cut it in half. There we go. So now we can move on to that second 10-inch square, and I'll move on to the next diagram that's in the pattern in order to catch all of those steps. And so it looks like the first cut I'm going to make is a 5-inch strip, which is easy because we're just going to lay our ruler on the side and cut this right in half. There we go. And then we'll turn this first piece, and we'll measure over 4.5 inches. So we have a piece that's 5 by 4.5. There's our first cut. Then I'm going to go ahead and cut another 4.5 inch square. And then we'll turn this, and we'll have a 1.5 inch by 4.5 inches. And then we need a 2.5 by 4.5. There we go. And then from this piece, all we need to cut are 2 3 by 2 inch rectangles. So I'm actually just going to measure over 3 inches. Sorry, I had to think about it just for a minute. And then we can cut these at 2 inches. There we go. And now we have all of these little pieces ready to go. You can see I do have this little bit left over, so if you made a cutting mistake, you should be able to go back and correct most of these little pieces based on what you have left over. So now I'm just going to set those aside, and we are going to move on and start cutting our roofs. Okay, so these dots here are our roof. And so now I'm going to do the same thing that we did for the house itself, and we're going to cut out the pieces for the roof. This is really easy to keep the pieces straight because you know all of these are for the house, anything from this is going to be for the roofs, and anything from this is going to be for the doors and windows. So to begin with, we're going to cut a nice 5-inch strip off of here. And then we're going to turn this and trim it down to 9 inches. Just take 1 inch off of that side. There we go. And then we need 2 2.5 by 4.5 inch pieces. So I am just going to measure in, make sure this is nice and straight. I'm going to measure in 4.5 inches. Make a cut, and then I can turn this and cut it in half and get my 2 pieces that I need. There we go. Those are my roof tops. Again, a little bit of extra here. And now let's cut out the doors and windows. We will turn the page for that. You have so much extra here, so if you wanted to use 1 square to make 2 of your windows, you could probably even get all 3 of your windows out of 1 square. I just really wanted it to be scrappy, so I mixed it all up. but let's go ahead and make these cuts, because no matter which squares you use, the measurements are going to be the same. So we need a 4.5 by 3 inch piece, a 2.5 by 2 inch piece, and a 3 by 1.5 inch piece. So let's make a 4.5 inch strip, since that's the widest cut we need to make. Make sure we're nice and straight. There we go. This is all extra. Now we can turn this to get our 4.5 by 3. There we go. And then we need to make a 1.5 inch cut. And then I'll turn that, trim it down to 1.5 by 3. There we go. And then one more little window is 2 inches. That's extra. We'll turn this and cut it 2 by 2.5. So this is all of the cutting that you're going to do to make your houses. And remember, you'll repeat that with each of these stacks. I've just cut enough for one of our houses, but let's go ahead now and pair that with our background pieces and our pre-cut prefuse, because that's going to complete all the pieces that we need for this. So you can see here's my little chimney. It's going to match the same as your house, whatever your house is out of, and then a little bit of smoke to come out of that chimney. Then for every single house block, you're going to need 4 2.5 inch background squares, 2 5 inch background squares, 1 4.5 by 4 inch piece, and 1 4.5 by 8.5 inch piece of your background fabric. So together, all of these pieces are going to make our nice big house blocks. So let's go ahead and start. I like to start with my rooftops just because it's just an easy place to start for me. It makes the most sense. So we're going to take our 2.5 by 4.5 inch rectangles that we cut for our roof, and we are going to use our 2.5 inch background squares, and we are going to make these cute little peaks for our roof. So let's bring these over here. And we are going to line it up on one side here, and so from point to point. And I like to chain piece these. There's our first one, and we can just slide the next one in right behind. Whoops, let me straighten this out. There we go. Perfect. We'll trim those apart. Then we'll trim off our seam allowance here. There's that one. And this one. Now we can press these back and we'll add the other side. Just roll that back like so. And this one. Okay. Now the reason that we need to trim and press these before we add our second set of squares is because this has been designed so that it's going to overlap here at the top so that we keep our peak when we set all of these blocks together. We don't want to lose the top of our roof. So again, I'm going to start from point to point, and so straight across, and this one as well. Make sure they're nice and lined up. There we go. Let me trim that off. There we go. All right, much in the same way we have added these, I'm going to press these back, and we're going to do the same thing with our 5 by 9 inch piece and our 2 5-inch squares. This is just a bigger rooftop. It's the exact same idea. But I am going to go ahead and get a micron pin here, and I'm going to mark on these squares just because it's a bit of a longer stretch. All right, so we're just going to set our ruler point to point here, and we are going to draw a line corner to corner. You could press this too if you'd like, but I like to draw it. And if you have an extension table like I do on my machine, I can actually still do this with my diagonal seam tape, but I think it's just good to know there's many ways to do this, and whatever is easiest for you is the way you should choose. So I'm going to line this up on this corner, and we'll make this first seam. We'll sew right on that line. There we go. Now we can take this over here and trim it off, just like before. Same exact steps, just a little bit bigger pieces that we're working with. Now let's press that. And then we can add that other square. And so when you do that, you want to make sure that that line that you drew is going to intersect here to create the peak. And so you can see here's that first triangle that we added, and we're going to add this one, and it's intersecting. So again, right on that line. Let me straighten it up first. It's always better to double check. There we go. And trim and press just like before. There we go. All right. Okay, so once we've made the rooftops, I like to then lay out all of my little sections for my haunted house. And so I'm going to clear off this cutting mat, and we are going to start doing that. So you'll notice when you turn the page in the pattern, it has all these wonderful diagrams that explain the layout of the house. And so we're going to take our little rooftops, and I know I've got one big rooftop and two small rooftops, and then I'm going to have some pieces that come together underneath. And so for the big rooftop, let's go ahead and do our doors and windows first, because our little short roof is where the door goes, and that is this 1.5 by 3 inch piece that we cut. Then this one has a little window that's going to go in it, and this one has a larger window. So those are those 3 pieces, and now we can set in these pieces around it to make everything line up. So this is actually going to go at the top here. And then we find all my pieces. These set on this side, and this sets underneath. You can see how as you're doing this layout, it starts to take shape. And this is the way I like to do it, just because I am so visual. And once I've done this layout, it's easy for me to see how all of the pieces go together. Sometimes when I'm reading through the pattern, it just becomes a lot of words, but I do love that I can go back and double check and make sure I have the pieces where they need to go. So I'm going to go ahead and finish up this layout, and then I'll meet you back here to sew it together. All right, I've got all of my pieces laid out, and now I just work in the sections that are most logical to me. So for instance, on this large one, I'm going to sew this bottom piece to this window. I'll do that first. Start by sewing these two together. Go ahead and press this back. And And then now remember, this came from right in here, and so I'm just going to add each of these rectangles on either side. So I'll start by sewing this one. Make sure it's all lined up with our 1/4 inch seam. There we go. Then we can flip this around and add this one on the other side. Okay, so now let's press that back. There we go. And now we can grab this top section and add it to this. Make sure we're all lined up again and sail down that side. Now before I press, I'm going to go ahead and grab the rooftop because this is going to go on this side here. Just add this and then I can press it all together. Ta-da! There is the largest part of our haunted house ready to go. And now we'll just keep working on the 2 smaller sections. So it's the same idea. I'm going to add these rectangles here to either side of my door. So we'll begin there. There's that one. I'm just going to give it a little finger press, open this up and add the other side. There we go. Now I can press this nice and flat. This is going to be our door to our haunted house. Then we'll add the little top piece. There we go. And just like we did on the large section of our house, we can go ahead, finger press this back, and add our rooftop. Make sure it's behaving. Take a few stitches, line up the end, and continue down. There we go. Look at that cute little house. Press that. Okay, one more section, and this is our tower part of the house. So we'll begin with the little window. Same idea, we're going to add these little rectangles on either side. Okay, we'll turn this and add to the other side. Go, give this a press. Go. Add this rectangle to one side. We can turn it around and add the larger piece on the bottom. Just like so. Make sure I kept it straight. Sometimes I get so excited that they just get a little crooked before I get to the machine. There we go. And lastly, we're going to add the rooftop. It goes to this skinnier side, just like this. I love making these haunted houses. They're so fun. There we go. Now we'll press this. Here are the 3 sections of our haunted house. And so now, as you can see, they are different heights. So all we need to do now is add our background strips that we cut to finish these off. So I'm going to go ahead and add these to both of them. Here's this one. The taller house gets the smaller background rectangle. And the shorter house gets the bigger one. There we go. We can just do one after the other. Sorry, this is looking a little wonky. We go. All right, now let's just go ahead and press that back. And this one. All right, now let's take this back to the cutting mat because I do want to show you how this goes together. So 2 of our houses are made like this, with our tower on this side, our short little doorway in the middle, and the larger section on this side. And so you'll sew this block, and I have the other one ready, and this block, the one with the bats behind it, in the exact same orientation. So let's go ahead and sew these together so I can show you what I mean. We'll add this strip here. Sew down the side. I am taking my time as I'm going down just to try and make my seams go the direction that I have them pressed. They're not really nesting, but that way it'll help manage some of that bulk. There we go. And now we can open this up and add this larger section on the other side. And they just fit together so nicely. So we'll just sew this one down. Ta-da! Look at that. Isn't that fun? All right, let's give it a press, and then this block is finished except for our chimney and our smoke. So once I get this pressed, I will grab that and we'll add that really quick. I'm just gonna turn it like so. And then I have my chimney and my smoke. These little pieces like this. And remember, your chimney is always going to match your house. And so this is that same skull print, and then this is the little smoke. And so we're gonna go ahead and lay these out and peel the backing off, like all of our pre-cut prefuse applique. And I'm just gonna start by laying my smoke on here, and then grabbing my chimney. And I like to have it maybe about a ½ inch up from this rooftop seam. And then I just kind of play around with my smoke to decide where I want that to come out. but I always make sure that I have more than 1/4 inch so that I'm not gonna lose any of this in my seam when I sew my blocks together. So I think that looks really fun and kind of spooky. So now that I have that where I want it, I'm just going to press straight down to set that applique in place. There we go. That should be fused and ready to go. And now, just like everything else, you'll want to go through and do whatever finishing stitch you chose, whether that's the blanket stitch, zigzag, or just a simple straight stitch. So this block is ready to go. Let me slide my chair on over. There we go. This block is ready to go. And I made this one that's set up the exact same way. The only difference is this block actually has a little bat added to it as well. So you'll see that there. Now the other block is the exact same components, but it's just going in the opposite direction. And so you'll see when we lay this out, we're going to put the big section of the house on the left-hand side, the smaller one in the middle, and the tower on the right. Just the complete opposite of these two that we've made. And we'll sew those together and add the applique in the exact same way. So that's it. Now you have 3 finished haunted houses to add to the quilt, and I will see you next time for week 5. Hey everyone, it's Misty. Thanks for watching at home. If you aren't already a part of our Missouri Star family, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell if you want a notification every time we release a new video. I'll see you next Monday on the newest episode of At Home.